Hello and welcome to Tech is for Everyone, the podcast series that deep dives into tech professionals' journeys using their experience to get you the best hints and tips to break into the world of tech. Just starting your career or looking to sidestep into a new industry or wanting to climb through the ranks, tune in and get ready to be inspired. Today I'm chatting with Menelik Simpson, software engineer at xDesign. Mena and I talk about how movies influenced his career, how he pivoted into software development, and my personal favourites, the importance of writing everything down. Tune in, grab a pen, and get writing.
Welcome to Tech is for Everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming in. The winter months are here, it's getting dark.
It is. Yeah, the leaves are changing, the winds are blowing. It's yeah.
You're not going to get the sun coming through that window today.
The heating's on now as well, so
Yeah, it's a bit warm.
I can feel the change. Change in the weather.
Well, look, I'll start with my question I ask everyone. It's what does technology mean to you?
So to me, in essence, I'd say technology is just a way of using your skills and knowledge to make a task easier. Whether it's like using, I don't know, a knife and fork to eat pasta rather than your fingers, or a washing machine to wash your clothes. Just I suppose the application of skills and knowledge to make a task easier or more efficient, I'd say. That's my vibe. What about you?
No one's asked me. No one's asked me. I think the obvious thing is I guess if you just think of technology, I would think my phone, my apps, the apps on your TV, or just your laptop for every day. But I guess in terms of what does tech mean to me, it makes life easier. Yeah, I would say, in terms of how it enables you to do certain tasks that 10 years ago, 15 years ago would have taken you maybe so much longer.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, it's funny you say that because I was just thinking about tasks and how they've changed over time. I remember being younger and going on like trips with the family and being the designated map reader, and now that's not even a thing. So, thank you, technology, I guess.
Do you know what? It's funny you say that because we said that because obviously, like I said to you before this, we've been to Scotland. And I said, how would we have found this place? How would we have found this place 20 years ago?
Yeah.
We've literally been, turning over pages. That's the route. Now we've got to go here.
That's it. I remember at one point, after during the sort of map reading era, when it was coming to a close and you used to go onto the AA website, print out the step-by-step sort of, details to get there instead of having to read the map. But even those times are gone now.
Now it's just Waze. In you go. if there's a traffic jam, I know I can dive off and just follow it. Literally all the way. Yeah, it's. I think that's it. I think it's more. It'll only get more efficient, won't it? I guess with AI and all that coming in, it will be either more efficient or we'll all be taken over by robots.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that. I did a talk not too long ago where I touched on AI, but the talk was essentially what can movies tell us about software engineering and where we might be going in the future. And I did touch on AI in parts of it.
Yeah.
Kind of on a side note to that, there was like a conference that I went to a few weeks ago. No, it was about a month ago now. There's a really interesting use of AI. So it was like a MongoDB conference down in London. Yeah. And on the keynote speech, one of their C-suite guys was there talking, and he was talking about this automotive company in the States that are using Mongo. And basically what they've got is this sound bank of engine sounds. Right. And so when you go into the mechanics to get your car fixed, they basically record the sounds that your car makes, match them up against what they've got, and then use that to sort of diagnose the issues with your car, which I thought was quite interesting.
They don't want to hear my exhaust at the minute. Definitely not.
Avoid the garage. Or maybe take it in.
My car sounds like, when you're like 17 and you might put like a turbo in your first car and you just drive around going, yes, I sound cool, my car sounds so loud. My car sounds even louder than that.
I've got a lot of time for that. Probably shouldn't, but I do. But yeah.
We've chatted before a little bit about it, but so you retrained to be in the job that you were in. Did you always want to be a developer? I mean, how did it start out?
So if I'm taking you like way back, once upon a time, I wanted to be an animator. That was like my original desire. So I grew up with like things like Wallace and Gromit, Celebrity Deathmatch, if you remember, all the kind of claymation sort of phase of TV. So that was my jam for like a while. But yeah, fast forward, I've always been into photography. That's what my dad was. So I did graphic design and photography at uni. I studied that for a while, came out, the recession hit. no one was really looking for graphic designers as such. And so I basically kind of did a little pivot. So I was working as a photographer's assistant I worked at Marie Claire for a while at ASOS, like a bunch of different sort of media magazines, and then I got a job working at the Daily Mirror, which is cool, but the hours were kind of wild. So I'd be working from say 5 till 2, and then I managed to get a job in New York doing the same thing, but like 5 till 2 there as well. So getting home 3 or 4 in the morning, I was like, this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
So I wanted something that was kind of creative, but was also quite challenging, and also influenced quite heavily by movies. And
Right, okay.
yeah, in a nutshell, it seemed like being a developer was something that would be a pursuit that would allow you to be kind of prized for your mind, I guess, in terms of your problem solving abilities. And it also seemed like you had a lot of scope for travel. So my partner is Russian. My family, my mum's side's from the Caribbean. My dad's side's, well, my mum's side's from Barbados, my dad's side's from Jamaica. So the idea of being able to potentially go to other places where the job that you did wasn't necessarily an obstacle, it seemed kind of like that fit in a nice little box.
Yeah.
So yeah, I basically retrained as a software engineer, basically.
Yeah.
And it was challenging, but I made it through.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, they say that nothing worth having is ever easy, or something like that, don't they?
Definitely. Yeah, I was told rough seas make good sailors, so I should always like embrace obstacles and challenge. And yeah, software engineering, I enjoy it very much, but it wasn't easy to get into. But I had a couple of people. So yeah, just to kind of go back, basically, when I finished working at the Mirror, I was in the States. I came back to Sheffield where my partner was studying, and there was not much in terms of jobs. So I was doing call center work for like 2 years. So I'd be doing shift work. I'd wake up. You mentioned like wake up like 5 in the morning. I get a few hours of like coding, like Codecademy, Udemy, anything I could sort of get my hands on. Be like listening to podcasts, like syntax podcast, and reading books. Finish a shift. If the shift was quiet, I'd be doing work during the shift as well. So I did that for about 2 years, working at call centers, teaching myself how to code. Managed to get a way of interviews. They went horribly, but it was kind of a good litmus test. I managed to sort of figure out where I needed to improve, and that kind of helped me get to the next stage. So
was it like you had to almost learn how to interview as a software developer rather than an animator or a call center agent or whatever it might be? It was okay. I've got some fundamental knowledge now, but actually it's learning how to interview and change that mindset a little bit.
That's interesting you say that, because that was actually one skill I kind of had to pick up as I went that I didn't even consider until that point. But the interviewing was definitely kind of crucial, because I guess with software engineering, as opposed to lots of other things I've applied for or that I've done previously, you don't necessarily need, I'd say, qualifications as such if you can prove what you can do. And often you'd be in an interview and people just want to see evidence of what you could do. So whether that be backed up by qualifications or certifications that you've done, or just kind of experience out there, that was definitely a skill that I've realised needed to be honed, and I didn't have it until I sort of went into the fire pit.
It's difficult to be able to commit that amount of time and dedication to be able to retraining and picking up a new skill alongside working, alongside everything else. So absolutely fair play.
Well, do you know what it was? The alternative was be stuck at the call centre. So I could kind of see myself, because I guess I was in my early 30s, I think 31. Yeah, 31 when I got my first. And I just moved to Sheffield. I was like, okay, there's not a great deal in terms of prospects here, but I could also feel myself getting quite comfortable. And I was like, this is not the vibe going forward. So it's either sink or swim. So I started paddling.
That's it, right? So this is a curveball question. So we say technology roles or developer roles specifically, if we're recruiting for a developer academy, we say, do you think it's a creative skill set or an analytical skill set?
That's interesting. That's very interesting, because I would consider myself as a creative person first and foremost. I think I do have an analytical mind. I like to question things and quantify things. My partner's constantly tired of me asking lots of hypothetical, well, what if this and what if that? Let's play devil's advocate. So, yeah, I'd say there's definitely balance. But for me, I'd probably say the creativity aspect of it is underrated because I think, especially when it comes to problem solving and how you approach a situation and how you sort of maybe take a step back and look at an issue and kind of see the bigger picture, then yeah, creativity is definitely something that is essential. I'd say for sure. I think it can. I think it can even easily be overlooked. And I think when you are creative as well, it shines. I think it's easy to kind of like sidestep the idea of creativity when you're looking at sort of coding and you're thinking, oh well, you have this piece of code and it needs to solve this particular problem. And I guess there's like a million ways you can do that one thing.
Yeah.
But part of the the flair kind of comes from like thinking outside of the box and maybe not doing things in a way that other people did it, or sort of questioning those things and looking for alternatives. So yeah, I think that's where the creativity definitely shines.
Yeah. I think I mean, for us, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just interesting to get people thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I think Thomas, who's the academy director, he definitely argues it's a creative skill set. You know, I think probably when you're learning it to begin with, it's probably maybe more analytical, maybe because you're actually learning it.
Yeah.
But the actual process of actually going and doing a job as a software engineer is very creative.
Yeah. I think I'd say probably when you're starting off that period of like the initial absorption of information, sort of learning how things work and how you sort of structure things and syntaxes for different languages and how sort of systems work together. Yeah, I don't think there's probably much creativity in there, but once you kind of get past those initial hurdles, then you kind of find your feet and then it does allow you to be quite creative. But yeah, maybe sort of from the outside looking in, it might not seem that way, but yeah, there's definitely space to kind of be creative.
So, what's the one thing about your job now that you didn't expect?
So again, I kind of mentioned I was quite heavily influenced by movies, and I think before I was a developer, I had certain ideas of what like coding was or what a software engineer was. A lot of it for me was the idea of like someone being in this sort of dark room, kind of isolated, working on some project, and then they figure it out, and it's all one person doing this massive, enormous kind of task by themselves.
Yeah.
And I realized it's not like that at all. Like you need to have people skills, you need to collaborate. It maybe it was like that at one point, but if it was, it's definitely shifted. Or at least the spaces that I've been in, collaboration is kind of essential. I think just being able to interact with other people and gel, and yeah, sometimes taking your ego out of things, because I think often you might get a little precious about when you're working on something and it's like, oh, I've done this little piece and this is my baby and I don't want it to be affected or to be changed. But yeah, I guess for the greater good, to improve your own skills, to improve the skills of those around you, yeah, it's essential that you are collaborative. And I guess for me, that was one thing I kind of didn't really realize until I sort of got into it. But it was like a pleasant surprise because I like collaborating. I like to be around people. So yeah.
You're not just plugged into the matrix all the time then.
But that's it. I don't think that would have worked for me, to be honest, if that actually was the reality.
Yeah. So if you weren't the dev, what other tech job would you do?
Ooh, this is interesting. What other tech job? I guess there's so many, and I think one of the good things about being a developer is that it sort of exposed me to other sort of avenues and directions. I guess if I'm being fanciful, if there was like one other thing that I could do that wasn't sort of related to tech but not sort of a developer, might be a venture capitalist, invest in sort of up and coming startups. Yeah.
In tech, invest in tech startups? Or just anything that's going to make you make some pennies if you're a venture capitalist?
Yeah, probably tech. Maybe sort of in the medical space. Yeah, maybe that overlap tech and medicine. I think that might be quite interesting and quite rewarding. But yeah,
med tech's a thing.
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah, med tech. Yeah. There's definitely ed tech, isn't there?
Yeah.
Must be med tech
for sure. There's a company that I did like a talk not too long ago. There's a company that I was looking into called Sravi. Going back to the whole AI thing, so they basically use AI to use lip reading. So when you have, let's say you've got a patient in the hospital who's had an issue with their sort of speech or their voice, Sravi basically use AI to interpret the lip movements of what that patient might be saying.
Right.
And so it kind of allows them to sort of have communication with the nurses and doctors.
Yeah.
I know they're quite a relatively recent company, and there was another company I was looking into called Replica. And they basically have these sort of AI personas.
Right.
So I guess it's kind of like a self-loneliness. So you might go onto this platform and you have like your AI friend, I guess, and it's kind of this empathetic person who's always there.
Right.
And I guess the more you talk to them, the more you train them, the more they know about you, and the more they get your sense of humor and your I guess in terms of medicine and tech, I guess there's some stuff coming through. So yeah.
So what's the most important lesson you've learned through your career?
To be adaptable. One of the things I kind of realized quite early on, especially when I was first starting out in software engineering, that there's a lot of things to know, and sometimes it can be really overwhelming. And for instance, over this last year, I've started getting involved with like Next.js, just trying to get a bit of a deep dive into that framework.
Yeah.
And I just released Next.js 14, just as I was getting used to 13. So things are constantly changing. So just rolling with the punches, I guess, and just being sort of flexible, because, as I say, sometimes it can kind of get overwhelming with regards to the amount of information that's out there, the amount of things to kind of like learn. Just trying to take it in stride, not feeling like you're being overwhelmed, because it's kind of easy to sort of have that happen to you. So
yeah, I think in in any role in life, being flexible and being open to learning new things is really important. Tech especially, because it moves so fast.
Yeah,
you learn one thing and, like you say, sort of 12 months later it's out of date and you've got to change. But
this is it. And currently, like the project I've been working on at work, it's very much been a case of kind of have to not necessarily think of yourself as having one particular area, because there's so many different things you can be involved in, and there's so many things that you have scope to sort of learn and develop and sort of get into. So I think sometimes the idea of like having one particular specialism could potentially like narrow you or limit what you might be open to.
So you mentioned about flexibility, but would you say there's a particular, in your opinion, is there any particular sort of personality trait or strengths that someone would need to have to, I guess, to be successful as a developer?
Yes. I think I'd say probably the main thing is being able to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Some of the best developers I've worked with have the ability to kind of like really go down into the minutiae of like a problem, but also kind of take a step back and understand from like a business perspective, what is it that we're trying to solve, and how can this thing be done using sort of tech? How do these things sort of interlock and work together? The idea of being able to, the ability to be able to take a step back and sort of look at the bigger picture is, I think, massive. Because as I say, often you'll be in the space or you'll work with people who don't necessarily see the bigger picture. And it's so easy to kind of get bogged down in the details sometimes, but when you can kind of see how this detail interlocks with this detail, you've already leveled up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm constantly aiming to do these days, and the best people around me, I see them sort of doing that. So that's what I kind of aspire to and sort of aim for. But
no, good tips. So not everyone has one, but do you have like a favourite sort of productivity hack or time saver?
So I've been through quite a few. So for a while, it was the Pomodoro technique, where I'd have like a little timer and I'd have like a solid bit of focused work. And then once that period of time is finished, like I'm up, like I'm going to go and do something.
Yeah.
I also recently got introduced to bionic reading. So there's like a couple of extensions that you can get that sort of help you take in text faster, essentially. I'm a very slow reader, so I found that's been quite useful for me.
Yeah.
It usually highlights like the first couple of letters on each word.
Okay.
So your brain kind of just sort of absorbs it. Well, that's the idea at least.
Okay. That might be, I'm going to have a look at that, to be fair. That might be really useful.
Yeah. I'd say probably the main thing for me that's helped though is I've got like an app on my phone. It's basically like a minimal UI app. Right. So what it does, it kind of strips all of the colours, it strips all of the fanciness from the UI of my phone. I don't have any icons, I've just got like a list of apps.
Right.
And so whenever I'm using my phone, I have to actively think about what it is that I'm trying to do with the phone, because I get sidetracked very easily. And especially with like social media, I've kind of got rid of most of it, but I found YouTube is a thing now where I might be on looking for a tutorial about something or a walkthrough for something, and then I'll find like a trailer for the new Wes Anderson movie, and then before
Funny
you
dog
know,
video or something. Yeah.
and then I'm like 45 minutes deep into the movie trailers. So
We've all been there.
yeah,
I do the same.
It's too easy, man. Too easy.
Yeah.
I'd say the minimal UI thing has definitely helped me.
Yeah.
It just kind of helps keep my focus.
Is what did you say? Is it Panorama? Did you say technique?
Oh, Pomodoro.
Yeah. So is that where you like set a timer? Because I think there's a stat, isn't there, that people can only concentrate on something for a certain amount of time before their mind wanders.
Yeah.
So you set yourself a timer so that you know in X amount of time you take a break and then you refresh and then you go back to it and then you do it the same length of time.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So I think there's like a few like different variations and like intervals, but yeah, for me, I used to do like 20 minutes of work. I'd take a 5-minute break where I'd sort of just switch to something else, and then I'd go back for like 20 minutes. I'd sort of do that for like an hour, and then I'd take like a 10-minute break, and then just keep my rhythm going basically. So that definitely helped. It's harder, I'd say, sometimes when you're at home and there's all these other things going on, but
it doesn't help when you get the Twitter notification that pops up and you're like, don't read it. Don't read it. I've got 3 minutes left. Don't do it.
Yeah, no, too easy.
So what tools are kind of, I guess, like indispensable to do your job?
So I know it's probably like super basic, but for me, a solid Wi-Fi connection, solid internet.
Yeah,
so I'm the kind of person up until recently who probably, if I could, I wouldn't spend more than like 60 quid on the phone. Like the idea of spending £700 on a phone is like insane. But what I quickly realised was you need your phone to do a lot of things. Right. And without a solid internet connection, especially if you're sort of mobile and on the move, it's not going to work. So recently upgraded the setup at home, got a new phone, a nice little 5G system.
Connection.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So for me, that's been a game changer for this year, because it actually means if I say, for instance, I'm doing like the school run in the morning, I can take my little one to school, and then literally as soon as I've left him, I could be connected I'm on my laptop, I'm doing work. It's sort of like lag time, I guess. It's kind of like minimal. Again, like if I'm traveling to and from work, being on the train, having my sort of data. This year I've done like quite a bit of traveling, and I found like the further north you get, the worse the Wi-Fi is on the train.
Right.
So when you're kind of like down south in the London area, like everything seems to flow a little bit more smoothly. When you're up towards like Middlesbrough and sort of Scarborough and all those kind of places, it's
just
not,
drops off.
Yeah, it's not as smooth. So Wi-Fi without a doubt.
Wi-Fi's key.
Number one. Yeah, Wi-Fi reigns supreme. Yeah.
Too right. Mine's not working. I've just changed my mobile provider and I can't hotspot. It's doing my head in. Absolutely doing my head in. So I feel your pain. I'm basically in Scarborough all the time.
See, that's the thing. I'd say, internet is kind of crucial because, again, sort of on a bit of a tangent, going back to Middlesbrough, went to a conference in Middlesbrough this summer. It was a really good conference. And there was a guy doing a talk, and they basically set up a startup. They had mobile internet, and they were sort of going to like refugee camps, and like they were at Calais, setting up Wi-Fi for the migrants over there. And one of the things that he said during the talk was, which I found super interesting, was when people were coming over in boats that made that journey, they were like dehydrated, they were like, some of them had hypothermia, but they weren't asking for like food or water. They were asking for Wi-Fi so they could get in contact with people. So kind of take for granted how integral it is, like to just daily life. But it's
you want heat, light, Wi-Fi, and food and water,
and not necessarily in that order as well. Wi-Fi first.
Wi-Fi first. Yeah. So what's the one piece of advice? So you started out, you're obviously self-taught.
Yeah.
What's the one piece of advice you could give to someone, or you wish that someone had given to you when you were starting out?
I'd say that's quite easy. So when I first began, I wrote everything down. I made notes. So I don't do it as much now, but when I was doing my studying, I had like a couple of notepads, and I used to make notes on all the tutorials, all the books that I'd read, all the podcasts I listened to. I'd like write everything down because my memory's like a sieve. But I'd go back and I'd read through my notes and I'd retain it, and that was sort of my system. I think if I could have had one piece of advice, it's to kind of write notes and stay consistent, because, as I say, when I first started the journey and I was at those call centres, there were a few people around me that were also learning to code, so we were trying to keep each other accountable.
Yeah.
But it was kind of just the consistency, like just keep doing it, like don't stop. Like if you set your alarm for 4 in the morning, if you set your alarm for 5 in the morning, if you want to do 15 minutes, like keep doing the 15 minutes, keep doing the 4 a.m., like whatever it is, just keep doing it because I feel like that tenacity is the thing that kind of pushed me through. And the people around me that were doing it at the same time, they're kind of just, it wasn't that they couldn't do it, but I guess over time they just, sort of dropped off.
Yeah.
So that consistency is key.
So you've got like a, I guess like a, almost like a library, like a go-to now then, that it's like, okay, well I've got, I remember doing that however long ago, 18 months ago, and right, bang, there's a link that I watched then. So it's just kind of going back and having access to it almost at your fingertips.
Yeah, and also like the very first job that I had, whenever we had sort of like a morning meeting, like our stand-ups, I would make notes on anything. So it was quite a small company. There was like 4 devs and our CTO, and like we were the sort of the tech team essentially.
Yeah.
And there were like 2 front-end guys. There was like 1 full stack. Yeah, basically we're like a bit of a hodgepodge, but because we all worked in like really close confines, the conversations were constantly going. So I'd just be listening to what people were saying. Anything I didn't understand, I'd write it down. And then that would be like my research for that day. I'd go home and I'd like Google what they were talking about. Obviously I'd ask them there and then as well, but sometimes given like the context or given the time, you don't necessarily have the time to sort of have a deep dive into one particular thing. Yeah, for me, that was kind of, that was a major key.
No, I love that. Absolutely love it. That's a top, definitely a top tip. 100%.
Yeah.
So finally then, what's the one question that you wished I'd asked you, and how would you have answered it?
So I guess probably the one question would be, how do you measure or celebrate your successes? Yeah, I think for me when I first started, I was so focused on trying to get out of a job that I really didn't like, and also prove to myself that I could be a developer. Because again, I was always told like, oh, there's a lot of competition, it's a difficult thing to get into. And I was like, oh, that's life. Like from when you're born, there's nothing but competition and challenge. So yeah, I think I didn't necessarily, in the beginning, I didn't necessarily sort of take time or take stock of what I'd done or take time to kind of appreciate what I'd done. Because I think I was very much focused on sort of, okay, I've done this, now I need to get to this, now I need to get to this. And then you kind of put your head above the parapet and you realise like, oh yeah, like I'm on my journey and like I've done a few things and I haven't actually stopped to kind of just acknowledge and like appreciate these little like milestones.
Yeah.
So yeah, every so often I'll kind of take stock of, I guess, the year, like what I've done, the kind of like highlights and things that have sort of stood out. And anytime I've found something really difficult, I'll make like a little note of it.
Yeah.
So like I've got like a little book of, some of them are like very inane, like random things that wouldn't really make any sense to anyone but me. But it's basically like a list of obstacles, I guess.
Yeah.
I can kind of refer back to them and be like, oh yeah, like I remember when I was doing this thing and it felt like the end of the world.
Yeah.
And that was like last year. And yeah.
I mean, you know how you've overcome it.
Yeah. So
celebrate those little wins.
That's literally it. Celebrate the wins. So I think it's important to kind of take stock of the progress that you make, because as I say, sometimes it's so easy to sort of be bogged down in the little details and not sort of take time to be grateful, I guess.
I definitely think when you're starting out, it's a major thing to do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like you say, if you beat yourself up for where you are now, think about where you were 6 months ago, or 12 months ago, or 18 months ago. And actually, if you were where you were 18 months ago, if you could see yourself in 18 months at that point, would you go, wow, that'd be brilliant?
Yeah.
You know, you would do. So you definitely need to stop and sort of take stock about what you've achieved. So
100%. Got a question for you, actually.
That's fine.
Yeah, so I guess, like, how do you sort of celebrate your wins or your victories? Like, have you got any sort of ceremonies, or have you got any rituals?
I mean, I think just that really. You know, just taking stock of the little things.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite a basic person. You know, if I've had a good week, or, you know, we've done something good and we've got someone in, you know, a job in industry or whatever it might be, I'll just celebrate by having a beer, or maybe a little cheeky takeaway pizza, or whatever it is. But it is that it is celebrating the little things.
Yeah.
You know, because you can, like you say, you can get lost in the sight, and, you know, sometimes that might be actually you've achieved something really, really big. You know, you've won a big contract and you've managed to get 30 people into tech jobs. Okay, great. Well, actually, I won't just have a beer and a takeaway pizza. We'll have a bit of a party.
Yeah,
we'll get those 30 people involved and have a bit of a celebration. We've got one tomorrow night as it goes. So I'm going out with three of the people that we placed recently to celebrate a nomination for an award.
Nice. Amazing.
Thanks. So that's kind of, you have to do that. Yeah, you have to celebrate the wins, and whether that's just sitting down at the end of the day, you know, logging off at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, so some days it's just, do you know what? Actually, today's been okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to feel guilty for shutting the laptop down and having tea with the kids.
I think you've just touched on something really interesting there as well. Because again, when I first started, at one point I was working like 7 days a week for like 6 months. And I was just like, all work. I guess in part it was summertime. Yeah, it was. And I remember there was like one weekend where I didn't work on the weekend and it felt weird. And I was thinking, this isn't a good feeling to have, to not be working and it feels strange because you're not working. But yeah, I think kind of taking stock and sort of just enjoying family time and enjoying time for yourself, like outside of work, is, I think it kind of helps enrich work. But yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Well, look. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate all the advice.
Yeah.
And watch this space for when it's out.
Thank you for listening to Tech is for Everyone. If you're looking to start your career in tech or want to know more about how our academy can help grow and diversify your teams, then find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, or via the Qualcomm Tech Academy website. Links can be found in the description. Look forward to having you join us on the next episode.